Well, good evening. Welcome to the Resilient Living Podcast. I am Jared Wilson, the host, and I'm joined by my friend Calvin from Invictus Templar.
Yeah. Hey,
Hey,
Jared. Thanks for having me on here. It took us a
absolutely.
while.
I know, right? We've been plotting and planning this one for a minute.
It's hard for me to plot things. As a Marine, we're slow. So
So why don't you tell our guests or our watchers a little bit about yourself, your background, and what
yeah,
is Invictus Templar?
yeah, sure. Great question. It's my favorite question about myself, right? Yeah. So my name's Calvin. I was in the Marines for 14 years. I did. Like most Marines, we never do our MOS, right? We never do the job that we sign up for because
Nope.
they part and parcel us out all over the place. But I was an artillery guy by trade, which I didn't do for the first like 4 years. I did counter battery radar, so we're tracking rounds flying through the air and then sending the data through computers so they can shoot back. And then after that, I was a Marine security guard, so I went around the world, lived in some weird places people had never heard of, and see weird like ex-Soviet stuff like the president has golden statues of himself, things like that. Um, and came back stateside, moved around a couple other different places. I was an anti-terrorism officer out in Camp Pendleton. I was the ops chief out at Camp Fuji. So I've kind of been all over the place. I got out of the Marines during the COVID time. Touchy subject for some, but there was a lot of weird political stuff going on, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure most of your listeners are aware of the allegations of scandal and things that happened with COVID, and for me it was we were being told that you have to get the shot. If you don't, you're going to get kicked out. And I was a gunnery sergeant at the time, as an E7, and so I was in that position where I had a lot of people under me, and I was being told, you know, you need to convince them to get the shot. And it's like, well, my job's not to convince people to get a shot, right? We were being told things like, tell them they don't qualify for a religious exemption, tell them, that it's going to get turned down. It's like, well, you don't know that, and I don't know that, and I'm not going to tell them that. So that was kind of like the final straw of like, it just tore up the reenlistment papers and got out. That was in tandem with my wife and I were having our first child, and I was in Japan, and I was told I wouldn't be able to fly home to see the birth of my firstborn child unless I got the shot. So I was like, okay, I'll take the shot begrudgingly because you're leaving me no option, right? But I mean, I was like, okay, so we've got coercion and being told to lie. I was like, I'm done, right? I'm out. Thank God that the DoD seems to be in a better place now. We've seen a lot of people get either reinstated or they're trying to
Yeah.
get back pay. But myself and a lot of people who I grew up with in the military all got out at the same time. So that's the short version, right? And then as I got out, we moved around, and when we moved to Tennessee, we uh, we had a home in Indiana. We sold it. We threw all of our stuff in storage, and we literally just we said, okay, middle of Tennessee sounds good because it's central. We don't know where we're going to live, but at least we can travel.
Right.
So we stuck a pen in, was it Clarksville, and we told like it was like the day we were moving. I chose a storage location that was available. Moved all of our stuff to Clarksville, and we drove around looking for land so we could build a house. And fast forward to time to get our stuff out of storage, and the storage company had not told us that there was a water leak, and so we lost. I think it was like upwards of like 20 grand and stuff in a storage accident.
Oh man.
And some of that was our personal protective equipment. So plate carriers that I had had for the longest time, body armor. Body armor wasn't that problem because I had steel plates and they're
Okay.
they're coated, so that was all good. But the in fact, I still have those somewhere. We need to go shoot rounds with them for fun.
Yeah.
But like the plate carriers and stuff, it's sitting in storage. It's already going to come out smelling a little funny because it's storage. But now it's
Yeah.
been in mold and mildew. It's like you're not saving that. So we got rid of that, and I obviously had to replace it. And so I had the same gear for 6 7 years, and being in the Marines for 14 years, I wore a lot of the gear that the DoD acquired. The
Right.
Marines particularly got to be the guinea pigs. I probably had 4 or 5 different plate carriers in the span of a decade and a half.
Oh man.
And so I was like, okay, I know what I want the gear to do. I know what the
Right.
gear I had does. And I went looking, and I won't name brands because I don't want brand warfare on my tiny microscopic nobody company. But
Yeah.
If you had bought a plate carrier 5 to 10 years ago and you went to go buy that same plate carrier right now, you could probably still find it at the place that you bought it, and they charge twice as much for it. So we're like, well, this all sucks. And shopped around and eventually found two plate carriers that worked for us. The one I bought my wife was from Tacticon.
Hmm.
Rest in peace, Tacticon. I think they're actually dead at this point. So
Are
not
they?
quite.
I
I think
kind of
so.
I kind of had that feeling.
Yeah, I won't litigate their issues, but they ran into the perfect storm of problems. But so we bought from Tacticon, and we ended up getting embedded with them through a random chance email. I never read promotional emails, which is ironic because as a business owner, I want people to
You're
read my.
right.
If you're listening, please read my promotional emails because
Nobody else's, but
they're more
ours.
important. You could read Jared's, I guess. Read Jared's promotionals, my promotionals, and like if you get something from like FPC and Preborn, that's it. So
There
those
you go.
four are good. Nobody else. Anyway, I never read promotional emails, and so I open up my email, and it's selling. It's like backpack armor for back to school. I have no school age children, and for
Yes, I
whatever
remember that.
reason, remember I told you this. For whatever reason, I was like, I want to read what this email says, and so I read it, and nothing to do with me, no application for me. I scroll down, and Jake Dines, the CEO of Tacticon, was trying to put together this community/entrepreneur class. And what he was doing was for a set fee with a money back guarantee, you could join this class and you could go through weekly classes with him and also all the pre recorded content that he had. It's basically like an entrepreneur course. And
Okay.
what it was his 10 plus years as being the founder and CEO of Tacticon and all the mistakes he made, like
Sure.
what screwed things up for him, what got him sued, what made him lose supply chain, like all these different things, right? So he taught all this, made it all available, and I happen to get out of the tail end of this. There's a few other businesses that have really taken off. Like there's a holster company. There's a guy who does 3D printing for gun accessories and all kinds of really cool stuff. So there's a handful of students that joined this out of I think hundreds that applied over 2 years that they've taken off. And I think we owe part of our success to that because we got to get in bed with these people who, wherever they've ended up now, there's a lot of drama. There's probably there you might have listeners who've watched some of the drama that unfolded at Tacticon, but we were fortunate to get something very positive out of it, and that positive was getting a sense of direction, some resources to build a company, and so that's what we did because looking back at our tactical gear that we needed to replace, that's the point of that story, right?
Right.
This is either garbage, doesn't do enough, or it's too expensive. So how can we fix that? And so decided, we could just let's just do it better, right?
Yeah.
14 years in the Marine Corps, I went around to all kinds of different places, and when I would show up to places, especially as a staff in the artillery community, you're an operations chief, and what that means is when you go somewhere, you run the operations department along with whoever the opso is, but you're also like the Mr. Fix It. You're always going in there and you're given the crap children, the problem children, like that
Right.
nobody wants. Right? And so you're fixing their problems, you're fixing whatever audit or inspection was failed. So all you've done is fix things. And what I found in fixing things was you never just try to do it yourself. You do not, whatever you this is like the golden advice. So everybody clip this. If you ever have a problem, unless you are the subject matter expert 100% in that problem, like that's your area of expertise, don't pull open the manual and try to figure it all out yourself. Yes, read the manual, right? But don't try to figure it out yourself. Crowdsource that shit. Okay, sorry, I'm gonna ban on Facebook
Delegate.
or something
Delegate.
like that. Right? Delegate, yeah. Well, and so I say crowdsource specifically, right? Like a lot of people know what delegation is, but I say crowdsource because what we did is I had my idea of what a plate carrier should do, what I wanted it to do, right?
Okay. Right.
But the way I want it to function, I might be in the minority. And so instead what we did is we went to gun shows around the God blessed wonderful state of Tennessee, the greatest state in the nation. It's on par with Florida because at least Florida is not freezing right now. So during this part of the year, Florida might maybe. That's like heresy, I'm sure. Somebody's mad at me now, but whatever. Anyway, I wish it wasn't 20 degrees right now. And
Yes.
So anyway, crowdsource it, right? So we went to gun shows, trade shows, and we used the internet because the internet is a thing, obviously. And I just went straight to veteran groups and I said, hey, I'll give you free stuff if you answer this survey honestly. And people are like, oh yeah, I'll do a survey for free stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so
Heck yeah.
we gave away plate carriers and we gave away body armor that we were wholesaling from Tacticon at the time. And what we did is we crowdsourced a plate carrier design. Like we asked people like, what plate carrier brand do you have right now? So we could see what the most popular plate carriers were in our
Sure.
demographic, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's one thing to say like so Cry Precision is an awesome company,
I was
right?
just gonna.
People
Yes.
love Cry Precision. How many people do you know own Cry Precision?
0.
I know like 3 maybe.
Yeah, I'm sure you
right?
do. Yeah.
I know a guy who works for like Raytheon and has 100% VA disability, so he buys from Cry Precision, right?
Of course, I would too.
Cry Precision is a great company.
Yeah.
Not everybody can afford that.
No.
Also, their features might not apply to everybody, right?
Very true.
And so the same thing, like a lot of people had Tacticon vests and they're like, I love this, this, and this about my Tacticon vest, but I don't like this.
But yes,
right?
exactly.
There was a lot of but, and then there was a lot of, I wish it also did this. And then my wife, for whatever, I don't know why she's married to me because she's far more intelligent because she's left-handed, right? And so as a left-handed person, she's like, why do all these plate carriers have like a single hand quick release? And I was like, well, that is weird that the quick release is only on one side on some plate carriers. But then also like, if you've never trained tactics before, you know that you want both arms, right?
Yes.
And I haven't watched all your episodes because I'm a bad friend, but you may have covered in like a medical episode of like your tourniquet should be where you can reach it.
Yeah.
Right.
Censure.
If like, my right arm goes down, right, I can't be like crippled because I can't reach my tourniquet wherever it is, right? And so the same idea applied to the plate carrier. So we're like, most plate carriers don't have ambidextrous quick releases.
Right.
That's an easy fix. And then people are like, we really want to be able to carry backpacks or hydration packs. I was like, yeah, why don't we make that available too? Like make it a thing, right? And then a lot of the people were complaining about plate carriers not being modular. And we're like, okay, well, how do we actually make it modular? Oh, I know. Not have everything sewn onto the plate carrier, because then if it wears out, you have to like re-sew stuff or just get a new
replace
plate
it.
carrier. What if I destroy my cummerbund, right? Or a shoulder pad, like I destroy them somehow, right? Replace the whole plate carrier, replace a single part.
Right.
Single part, right? So we built a plate carrier that way. And we're doing the same thing with other products too. And so that's our goal is to bring products to the market, not necessarily to challenge the market, because the people who are already in this space, they have, I wouldn't call it a fan base, but they have a specific customer niche that they focus on. And we want to serve kind of like everybody else. In a marketing shtick, I call it like the everyday patriot. But when you unpack the everyday patriot, what does that mean? It's just the American dude or dudette that wants some kind of preparedness and defense. Yeah. And they're like, yeah, a plate carrier would be cool, right? And having something to carry my body armor around would be cool. But I either can't afford this over here or the thing on Amazon from China for $30. Everybody says it falls apart after you use it twice during your airsoft game, right?
That's it. Okay. Yes.
So, we're fixing that problem. And then in the future, we're going to fix some other problems. We've got a backpack in design right now, a fully modular backpack. And your audience will be happy to know. And who's the gentleman you had 2 episodes ago? You guys were talking about EDC.
Will, yeah.
Will. Was it
Will Copeland?
Was it Will or was it Ryan that brought up the 35-liter limit on the backpack because you're going to fill it?
I think it was me or Will, yeah.
Yeah, one of you brought that up. And ironically, as I'm listening to that, I was like, oh, yeah, that's actually the exact limit of our backpack system because you don't want a bigger backpack.
No, you don't.
So we're building a fully modular backpack system. It's in design, and I'll just use the soon TM, right, because it's coming eventually. We don't know when.
Nice.
There's a lot of work that goes into developing stuff. We've got optics that we're going to release eventually. I actually have 4 of them in the cabinet behind me that we need to test because there's a lack of mid-market and entry-level optics that aren't garbage, right? People want HoloSuns. I own one HoloSun because it's what I could afford. But the rest of my optics are not that high up, right? And so there's this massive gap in the industry that we're trying to serve so that way people have access to equipment that they want or need, and hopefully both, right? And something that they can train with. And if they do break it, they don't have to get a second mortgage to do
replace
that,
it.
because
Yeah.
we want you to be able to train with your gear, right?
Yes.
And I know we're going to talk about armor, but for example, we get a lot of people who they will buy steel armor from us because they want something to be protected with, and they want something to train in.
Yeah.
And they're like, this is affordable, accessible, it does everything I need it to do, and I'm not going to break it, at least easily, right? So
I'd be
so that's,
impressed if you did.
I'd be impressed too. So that, I guess that's the overall shtick. I'll be quiet now.
No,
And,
no, you're good. You're good. Okay, so that's kind of your overall mission, philosophy, ethos
yeah.
of the company. Very cool. Very cool. So, personal defense. And I think we would both agree that that really needs to be a real central idea in being in preparedness is physical defense, personal physical defense.
Right.
And you've really done a really phenomenal job of building a company that is, like you said, predicated around providing that to the general public that isn't, the John Wicks of
Right.
shooting. They're not the
I wish I was John Wick. I have 3 kids and a wife, and so it actually turns out that raising a family takes priority over 5 to 10 hours of tactical training a day, right?
I
Who
know,
would have
right?
thought, right?
Who?
So
That's right. So okay, so what did you say would be the relationship between defense, medial readiness, and sustainment as far as your stuff?
so I think you guys do a good job of talking about, the general concept of preparedness and sustainment, right? So having
Well,
those
thank you.
things. Well, I was just listening, like I said, about the EDC, and the EDC
Yeah.
conversation was fascinating because when normal people talk about EDC, they think about like, what do you have on your direct person? But
Mm,
you guys talked about your backpack that's like your little safety blanket that you never go anywhere
that's
without.
right.
And
I'm Linus. That's what.
yeah, your Linus pack, right? And so that's a good one. And like, for example, in my office, I've got emergency food and water, and I've got, obviously there's ammo back there somewhere.
Somewhere.
There's extra propane for the flamethrower back
That's
there,
right.
things like that. So those are all part of like sustainment, right? So sustainment you would unpack into what are you sustaining for? And
Yes.
interestingly enough, that's kind of how you frame the other topics as well, specifically the how does personal defense play into it. And
Right.
so, we get questions, especially gun shows. I don't usually get these questions online, but sometimes I'll get 1 or 2 comments. But at gun shows, people come by and they'll be like, "Can't imagine why you'd need that." And I'd say, "Well, it's hard to imagine because there's so many scenarios where you might, and we're not talking about the Kenosha, Wisconsins of the world, right?
Right.
And I'm personally not on my way to disrupt ICE operations today, right?
Right.
I know I'm being super controversial. People are going to get upset. Facebook's going to get so mad at us. This is our first. By the way, we haven't said it, but we're launching our content on YouTube, and I'm sure I've already got my YouTube channel banned just off these comments alone. But anyway,
Join the club.
so yeah, right. It's good company. I
You're good
wouldn't
company.
be
That's
anywhere
right.
else. So and the same idea of sustainment. What are you sustaining for? Your home is going to have sustainment for a longer period than your drag bag does. Your drag
Yeah.
bag is like a 48-hour, 72-hour bag, depending on what it is, right?
Hmm.
If you've prepped bags for your children, it's probably realistically, the way kids eat snacks, it's a 2 to 4 hour bag instead of a 24-hour bag.
The whole thing is just solid snacks. It's
The whole
just
thing is snacks, and it got you to your first fill up with
yeah.
the car wherever you're driving to, right?
Yeah, that was the drop
Um,
point. The drop point was
right.
for
The
the
drop
snacks.
is exactly the drop point is to get to the next set of snacks, right? We're going to grandma's house. Why? Grandma doesn't live somewhere. So she's got more snacks. We're reloading. Okay, so defense, you're looking at the same thing. And when people come to us and they ask, why would I need body armor? Right. Well, it depends on what you mean by the word need. Like,
Mm,
what are you planning for? What is a realistic scenario for you that you can envision yourself being in? And by the way, this is actually the reason why steel armor is the most popular, which we'll talk about the types, but that's one of the reasons steel is the most popular because it's affordable and
Yep.
durable.
Yep.
And people say, like, if I don't really know what to plan for, but I want to plan for if there's shots being fired around me, something, right?
Hmm.
So, when we lived in I'll give you an example. I'll give you a few examples. We lived in Smithville, and about
Yeah.
a year and a half ago, there was an active shooter in
Yes.
Smithville. So you remember that, and
Yeah.
it was on the street next to us. And so what happened when we found out there was an active shooter? Well, we closed all blinds and windows. Kids and mom went to the center of the house,
Yep.
away from windows. What did dad do? I grabbed my rifle and I grabbed shut that beautiful KSG up there, and I set it on the
Yes.
table, and I had my plate carrier.
Hmm.
And I made the remark of, well, okay, this guy's going around shooting randomly at police and random people. See if he comes to our house, and then we'll save the taxpayer money, right? Again,
That's right.
YouTube's gonna be mad about that, but I don't think taxpayers should have to pay for people who are just wantonly committing murder in society. But
Makes sense. I like it.
controversial take. Yeah, so in that situation, it turned out not to need it, but I was glad I had it.
Yeah.
And I've had people come to us and they buy stuff. They'll come to us and say, "I need something really lightweight." I'm like, "Okay, what are you trying to do with it?" And he says to me, this is a real story. He says, "Well, I have family up in Chicago," and I was like, "Okay, I know where this is going." And he says, well, "I go up there frequently and I ride my motorcycle." I'm like,
Oh.
"Okay, maybe I don't know where this is going. This is interesting. Please
Yeah.
continue."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he's like, "Twice now, I had been shot at driving around on my motorcycle." I'm like, "You mean just like
No.
cruising down the?" He's like, "Yes, just cruising down the street, and people just started shooting at me."
Wild.
I was like, "Well, perfect. I've got a product for you that's going to fit exactly what you need. I wish I didn't, but I do, right?"
Right.
Or I guess I would say I wish I didn't have to have a product and you didn't have to have it, but it's a real situation, right? And I've
Right.
had people come up to me and say, like, "I want something that I can keep in my truck."
Hmm.
Because some guy was like, "My brother is a police officer."
Yep.
I forget which town. It was somewhere near Lebanon, and Lebanon, Tennessee. And he says, "My brother is a police officer, and he had just responded like a year or two ago to a shootout in a Walmart parking lot."
Ooh.
And I was
Yeah.
like, "Okay, well, yeah, that's a scenario too, where you've got something in your car, right, that you throw on because there's there's a tavern brawl happening outside Walmart, right?"
Right.
And so it's like there's so many scenarios you could be planning for, but to me, like, the most realistic one is the natural disaster, the civil unrest, right? That's
Yeah.
if something is going to happen, that's the most realistic, like, sustainment plan that you're prepping your food for, you're prepping your water for. That's what you prep your house for.
Right.
And if things go down, the government is not there to save you, right?
He couldn't. There's not enough government to save all of us.
There's not, right? And we saw it, and this is not a dig at the police officers in Smithville, Tennessee. When this guy was going around shooting at people in an urban neighborhood,
Yeah.
they're not trained for urban, like, counterinsurgency operations, which is essentially what that was. A guy is
Yes.
leaping fences, hiding in bushes, and taking shots. That is a counterinsurgency operation, and that's not
Yes.
average police duty. So it took them time to get rid of this guy, right? Now you scale that out. All these resources are combined. Now you scale that out. What happens if there's mass unrest, right?
Yeah.
How are you defending your house, and how is your neighborhood protecting itself? And you would hope, and especially in the great state of Tennessee, that the odds of enough neighbors not going to tolerate that is high enough.
Yeah.
And if all the neighbors are, upholding all their pillars of "I'm going to stand my ground," your neighborhood's probably going to be all right enough for everybody to get prepped to get out of there, right? And
Oh
that's
yeah.
what you hope for. And so then, you ask yourself, like, so what are you actually going to prepare your house for? And for me, it comes down to setting aside, like, medical, and setting aside, food and water. Those are givens, right?
Oh yeah.
Um, you need a firearm. Somebody in your house needs a firearm, at least one, and they
Yeah.
need to know how to use it. They
Yes.
need to be, we'll say
Proficient
we'll
and
say
yeah.
proficient, and that's a broad definition. But what does it mean to be proficient? You can use it safely. right? You're not going to, when you're under stress, when you're under duress, you're not going to accidentally hurt yourself or someone you don't intend to hurt,
Yep.
right? And then what comes after that is having body armor, right? Because we can talk about specifically why in a moment, but having something to defend yourself
Stay
from
in the fight.
bullets from a bad guy, stay in the fight. Exactly.
Yep.
So that's really the way I see it as far as sustainment and survivability and defense and all this. We get every once in a while we get somebody say like, "How can you sell this stuff? You're preparing the Christian nationalists for war." And it's like, look, lady, like I am happy to provide you with the same thing too, because God forbid something happens, I want you to be protected too. Like I hope that
Yep.
you're safe as well, right?
Yep. And I will bear arms and defend your rights to whatever opinion you decide to have.
Right, that's right. Like, so while you're screeching at me incoherently over the internet, if things do happen, feel free to go ahead and get behind me, and we'll take it from there, right? And at
Yep.
that point, just don't try to like hold on to me. Just stay behind me a little bit so I can move, right?
Yeah, right.
I'm slower in my old and decrepit age after the course, so.
Nice. Okay, so can you walk us through the defense pyramid? Because I don't know if everybody who's watching or listening is familiar with the defense pyramid.
Yeah, so everybody likes putting things in like threes, right? You got your stool legs, or whatever, but depending on who you talk to, your pyramid has, well, it's kind of what you've already mentioned. We've already alluded to a little bit. Is you've got sustainment. Sustainment is usually in the defensive pyramid. It's usually medical supplies. It could also be like the stuff you need long term, so food and water, but generally it's medical.
Right.
But then you've got something to keep you in the fight, which is your defensive equipment, which is the body armor, right? And then you have something that technically would be offensive as a firearm, but in this case, we're strictly using it as a deterrent against a greater threat, right? Or as something to either engage an imminent threat, right? So we're talking like, disclaimer, this is not legal advice, right? Please go read all the castle laws and all the other laws. But in general, most states have a standard that somewhere roughly falls along the line of, if you are being threatened with lethal force, you are, legally permitted to defend yourself. And if you live in a state that they don't do that, get out.
Leave,
right?
yeah.
Leave, right? So I'm just going to assume everything I'm saying here is in the context of your state allows you some form of stand your ground or castle doctrine, which is what God intended for all freedom-loving patriots, right? So when you look at that pyramid, you're putting together a system where you can defend yourself, you can stay in the fight, right? And then you can continue the fight. And when we say fight, what we're really getting at is active resistance against a threat, because you can only for so long hunker down somewhere, right? And so as an example, when I was on embassy duty, we had a ready room, like a safe room inside post one. So you get inside post one, it's an armored door. It's like a 60-minute door, right? So if you don't have the right tools, you're not getting in there anytime soon.
Right.
But we weren't going in there to wait for 60 minutes. We were going in there to put on our gear, and then we were coming back out to remove you, right?
Yes.
And so in a defensive, exactly. So in a defensive situation, like in your home, let's say that there's like a small riot or like a group of people, like, name any of these movies where bad guys come to the house, right?
Yeah.
And now you're in your bedroom, you're in your closet, you're in your office, whatever, that has your stuff. You have two options. Your first option is, can you get a hold of law enforcement? Are they on their way? If so, okay, you're good, right? Assuming nobody's going to be able to get to you in time. If you have like a safety door, then you're probably fine. If you're like most people, what you have time to do here is you've locked a couple doors between you and the threat, and you're getting your stuff, because now you're going to have to repel the borders, right? And that's, this is where you're shouting tally ho, and the grape shot goes down the hallway, that kind of thing, right? And so what we stress is get your pillars aligned here. So 3 pillars, a pyramid, whatever you want to call it. The firearm, right? Then the body armor to keep you in the fight, and then the medical. Now, there's people out there who say like, oh, you should have your medical gear because medical applies, in so many more situations. And I agree with the caveat of like, what is the medical kit? Like, go to Walmart and buy like
Their boo
the
boo
little
kit.
the boo boo kit, right? Maybe like some of those suture band-aids, right?
Yeah, yeah,
If you don't know how to, because if you don't know how to suture, if you're not trained, buying a suture kit's useless for you anyway. So you might as
yeah.
well just buy tape, right? Duct tape is great in a medical emergency. Get things like
Super
that.
glue and yeah,
Yeah, super glue and duct tape is going to go a long way for you, right? But
better than nothing.
the mentality here is you're planning for a situation where you've had to use a firearm or you're preparing to use a firearm. You now, because you're about to engage a threat or because a threat is coming towards you, they're coming to you, they mean to do you and your family harm, your property, they're there to endanger you and your property. um, you want to stay in the fight, so now you've got your body armor. The third piece of that is what fixes you up after the fight, right? And
Hmm.
this follows the same line of logic that the military uses now. So for a while, and this is very outdated, right? So if we've got some old timers on that are listening, and they're going to be like, "That's not what I was taught in the NAM." It's like, understand things have evolved. Modern day military members are going to be familiar with something called get off the X. What used to happen, and you'd see that, you can go watch Saving Private Ryan, actually. This is a perfect movie that illustrates this. So in Saving Private Ryan, the sniper downs a guy, right?
Right.
And now they got to go get this guy. And they're trying to figure out how to go get this. I think there's also the same scene as in like Full Metal Jacket. Like it's in
I
a
think
couple
so.
of
Yeah.
different movies, right?
Yep.
Enemy at the Gates, I think too. So okay, so
Yep.
this scenario, now that I think about it, this is a very popular scenario.
It's a
So
trope. Yep.
guy is down, he's kneecapped or whatever,
Right.
and they need to go help him. And like, okay, what happens in those scenarios? Well, somebody's going to go try to go get him, and then he gets shot. So now you got
Yep.
2 people down, right?
Yep.
And so what the military realized is the idea that you're going to run out and start applying medical care wherever that person is almost
Right.
never going to happen.
Sure.
Instead, what we train to now, and the State Department trains to this as well, is if somebody goes down, they're staying there until you can control the situation. And when we say control the situation, that means either the threat has been neutralized,
Yep.
they're suppressed, right? So, hopefully, if something bad really happens and you've got an injured family member, you're going to be able to retaliate and get them away. But you're not going to do anything with your medical kit until you get them back. And so, if you're talking about things to prioritize, like if you've got your boo boo kit, that's great. But if you're like, I need to get a really good IFAK kit, I need a big medical bag, like, no, you don't. Because if you can't shoot back, you're never going to get to your medical kit.
Right.
If you don't have body armor and you get turned into Swiss cheese, you're not going to get to your medical kit. Your
Right.
medical kit is tertiary. It's after the engagement has happened, right? It's what we do. It's what we do to fix ourselves. So it's kind of like eating right, sleeping, hydrating, and stuff, because the doctor's the last thing, right? Like
Right.
if you just stop eating food, the doctor's not going to be able to help you because you're just going to die, right? If you don't drink water, you're never going to make it to the doctor. You're going to die of dehydration, right? So the doctor's tertiary.
Right.
So,
Very cool. Very cool. So why firearms are the first priority in home defense? I think which is really kind of the fundamentals of what we were just talking about.
yeah. So it's the first pillar because you need to be able to to engage and neutralize a threat if that threat is presenting loss of life or limb, right? And
Yeah.
that's usually where most laws and law enforcement will agree that if it's loss of life and limb, that's when you're allowed to use lethal force. And
Yeah.
so you know the majority of people are not properly trained on non-lethals, and that's the truth. Non-lethals take a lot more training than a firearm because a
Really do.
firearm is pretty simple. If you think that you're gonna whip out an expandable baton and subdue somebody, you're kidding yourself. You don't know how to use a baton properly. I went through a lot of hours of training to properly use a baton. and it was still difficult. It was
Yeah.
much easier if I'm being overwhelmed by a threat to draw my firearm. I
Oh
don't
yeah.
want to. I don't want to do that, right?
Right.
And the majority of our
Point and
training,
click.
right? The majority of our training was non-lethal, and why is that? Because it's really easy to point and click. It's a lot harder to subdue somebody in hand-to-hand combat. It's the same reason why we had to go through OC training and get
Oh yeah.
blasted in the
Blast
face.
in the face. Yeah.
And we're having to fight hand to hand while OC, right? Because you're being
Yeah.
trained to use this non-lethal, and oops, I got my own non-lethal in my face and I can't see. I still got to be able to stay in the fight, right? So as far as firearms being the first pillar, the reality is the average person is never going to get trained in non-lethal. And so if you think that you're going to pull out some pepper spray and you're going to subdue somebody, like the odds are, like, I'm sorry, you're kidding yourself. That's also wishful thinking, because there's, if somebody is on drugs, they're on PCP.
Yes.
They don't care that you just pepper sprayed them. The pepper spray you have is not military grade. Maybe you've got some followers who do have the good stuff, right? But if you go to Walmart and you pick up some pepper spray, that's for like some grumpy guy is banging on your car window and like he's scaring your dog and you're like, get away, right? Like that's not.
Yeah,
you're not going to do much,
dog
right?
deterrent. It's
dog deterrent.
Not.
Unless you have bear mace, you're not going to deter, a 200-pound man, hopped up on PCP, right? So the firearm is the great equalizer, and it's the equalizer that can take, especially like you look at women, right? Women especially should get familiar with a firearm that they can properly handle, that they feel comfortable with, because the majority of offenders are males. A woman is almost never going to be in a confrontation with another woman. And if they are, they're probably going to, they might throw hands a little bit and that's fine, right?
Sure.
The average conflict is going to be between a man and a man or a man and a woman. And if it's a man and a man, like, all right, great. Like, I still don't want to fight fair. I'm personally not a huge guy. I'm 5'9". I was not graced with like Icelandic genetics. So the average man is my height or taller and bigger. And, there's a lot of hosses out there too, right? So if hoss comes at me, I'm really not wanting to do, I want the equalizer. And if somebody comes at my wife, I want her to have the equalizer, right? So that's why firearms is most important. And the same thing goes into, like, when I talked about staying in the fight, and that's why you want body armor as part 2. The reason why you want the firearm is, what if you can't get to your body armor?
Right. Yeah. Then what?
Yeah. Or what if you have body armor but no firearm? What is that going to? Are you going to take up the plate and just start?
Beat them with
this is AR 600 steel. It's hard, but this is not conducive to fighting, right? No. So again, and what am I going to do with my medical kit? I'm going to throw my tourniquet at him. Get away, please, no.
Right.
So firearm comes first, because you can use it defensively, right? You can get somebody to stand down, right?
Yeah.
And if they're not and your life is in danger, then you can do what you need to do, right?
Yeah, you can stop the threat.
Yeah, you stop the threat, because if you don't, then none of the rest matters, right?
Right. So. Yeah, and I had that conversation probably numerous times a week, because I carry in my shop. I'm either concealed carry or open carry, and people ask me, and I'm like, they're like, "Are you really prepared to kill somebody?" I'm like, "I'm not here to kill somebody. That's not my intent. But I will absolutely stop the threat.
Right.
It will cease being a threat. Then I'll probably render medical aid.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
And so to me, like, that's the other side of having medical. So, and another conversation I have, and this kind of leads off of that, because you mentioned women, is I have the conversation of women coming in going, what gun should I carry? And because they've been told, like, oh, you're just gonna get the cute little teal Taurus revolver,
or the little pepper box,
or yeah, right. And I keep telling them, like, no, don't do that. Get the biggest gun you can conceal, because you need to be able to control this thing. You do not need this stupid little revolver. Don't do. So okay, so how would you go about making a recommendation for
Yeah.
how to select a firearm for that home defense.
Yeah. So, okay, so there's a couple things to consider, and it really it's ease of use
Yes.
and what is your day-to-day utility. Now, if you're someone who's like, I'm really not comfortable carrying a firearm because I don't
Yeah.
have enough training, then I would say
Get training.
find time to get trained. But I get it. Life is life, right? And you might be very busy,
Sure.
so don't get a handgun. Do not get a hand. The handgun is the hardest weapon to master. Now,
Oh yeah.
that's in context of other weapons being more similar, because I personally don't think handguns are very hard if you go get some training. And you can go to many good gun ranges that have courses,
Yep.
and in a matter of hours, you can be pretty comfortable with your handgun. Maybe not
Yes.
comfortable enough to conceal carry and draw, which shout out to my own channel. We're going to be doing some teaching on how to do that. So there'll be some good, like, if dad didn't teach you, I'll try to teach you from, how the best I can. And my favorite part will be the people being like, well, my method's better. I'm like, well, okay, well, that's good. Go start your own channel, bud.
Yeah. That's fine.
Yeah, you go make a channel. Teach me. Come on over. Teach me.
Yeah.
Anyway, I digress. But don't get a handgun if you're not comfortable with it, right? So you've got 3 weapons choices outside of chainsaws, hammers, and flamethrowers, which are all fun for home defense, or cannons if you have a cannon. But the realistic choice, I actually have a Warhammer back here.
Yes.
So it keep it on my belt because I like to LARP too. So I like to be prepared realistically, but then also, grown up as a video game nerd.
Right.
So I have all the realistic stuff, and then I'm like, but what if the time comes? Yeah, I ran out of ammo.
That's right.
Not really, because there's ammo back there, but I have none right here in the magazine. The hammer, right? I don't know what scenario that actually is, but I'm ready for it. Anyway, so your three realistic choices: handguns, long rifles, and shotguns. Okay.
Yep.
Now, how do you pick? Well, we already said that if you're not comfortable with a handgun because you just haven't been trained on it enough, don't get a handgun. There's 2 things that make a handgun the most difficult to use. One is the actual ergonomics of it and the size. Because it is smaller, your shooting stance matters a lot more. So how you control the weapon matters so much more. The barrel length, and your average user may not know this if they didn't grow up around guns. The barrel length matters an awful lot, because here's the thing, and you can see this on camera. If I'm pointing this around, you see how quickly my 2 fingers move. If I go out like this is much easier on the eyes, right? This is much faster. This is much easier. Okay. So when you have a handgun, trying to aim a handgun in a stressful situation, you are much, much, much more likely to miss if you're not properly trained. Whereas a long gun, if the end of my gun is pointed at you, I'm going to win you at least, right? So that's why you get to, when you're talking about long guns, they're easier to use. They're easier to control. You shoulder it, so your body is absorbing the recoil if you're having to shoot multiple rounds. It makes it so much easier to control for those follow-on shots. When I taught shooting in the Marine Corps, we would do pistol ranges, and we would look for people who've never pistol qualified before. And some of them have never handled a pistol. So we'd get them out there. And this is very common to women and men who are very small stature. The first time they shoot that gun, not in a 9mm, so not even a large caliber gun.
Right.
They shoot that thing, and it's like this. Their recoil is going like this. You put a rifle in someone's shoulder, and they take their first shot of their life, and they goes, and they're like, oh wow, but they recover real quick, right? Not so much with handguns, right? So the rifle is a steady platform, especially if you're we're not talking about like Grandpappy's 36-inch shotgun from the 1800s. We're talking about something with like a 26-inch barrel, a standard size rifle, something like what's up behind me, right?
Yeah.
Something like that is a platform that anyone can learn very quickly and be very comfortable with for use around their home. The shotgun is, of course, we see it in movies. Like, personally, I'm a huge fan of Kill Bill, right? So,
Yes.
you know which scene I'm about to talk about, right? So, spoiler alert, if you haven't watched Kill Bill, it's been out since, I don't know, ever.
Yeah.
Anyway, the
No excuse.
bride, she opens up the trailer door, and there's Bud's
Yeah.
sitting there with the shotgun and the rock song. What does he do? It
Boom.
just
Yeah.
knocks her back out the door, right? And so the shotgun has like preeminently been one of the main choices for home defense because you have a variety of ways you can use it, right?
Yes.
So you can have a slug in there. You just put a big metal round through your target,
Yep.
or you can have bird shot, which is you're going to be rendering medical aid after that because you're not going to kill somebody with bird shot most
Nope.
likely. You could possibly, but be prepared to render aid. But so there's options with a shotgun. They're also very easy to use, especially if you're using, some kind of shot shell because it's hard to miss, right? It's really hard to miss.
Yeah.
Slug is easy to miss. You got, depending on the type of shotgun, you might have one or two shots, or if you got a KSG, you just keep pumping that bad boy.
Run mini
switch
shells.
to the other, switch to the other chamber. You can switch between shells. For anyone who's, thinking like, where's this guy live? He's annoying. I'm gonna go pay him a visit. The KSG is loaded with birdshot on one side and Sabo slugs on the other. I can switch between the two every round, so that's fun. We'll do a video on it. It'll be fun. Anyway, so those being your three options. The other piece that I'll add is, again, this goes back to what I said earlier in the stream is like, what are you actually preparing for? Like you said, if you don't know how to use it, if you're not trained on a handgun, go get trained because you should get to a point where you're comfortable concealed carrying because now you can do two things. Now you've got a gun for your home and you've got a gun for everywhere else because as cool as this looks behind me, I don't take these all over. I don't go into Walmart with the Smith and Wesson, lever action up.
Why not?
I don't because I'm not a boomer with the iron on my hip. And by the way, and I'm just going to say this is unsolicited advice. Stop open carrying. Stop open carrying. Stop it. Don't do it. You make yourself a target. The most dangerous man in the room is the one that is quiet and nobody knows is a threat. Okay. If you're walking around with your 9-iron on your hip, everybody knows it, right? If there's somebody who means to do harm, you just became his first target. Okay, so there's your unsolicited advice. If you're in your shop, your place of business, Jared, open carry, right? Because it's your shop and people should know they're not going to walk into your shop and rob you. But if you're at Dollar General, right, or church or wherever, conceal, please. Don't make yourself a target, right? So
agreed. No, I definitely agree. Like, so yeah, behind me, so that's a 14.5. Below here, I can't finger this. Okay, there, 10.5 is a great manageable size for, and I do recommend the AR platform. I do. It is an intuitive platform. It is very adjustable for, ergonomics, depending on your own physiology. Get an AR and come by my shop and I can help you set it up.
Yeah, perfect. A couple other things I'll add is, caliber, right? And I'm gonna upset people. 45 is not the end all be all. It did not win World War II. Stop it. It didn't win World War II. The atomic bomb. We have great bombs. We drop big bombs. We'll drop more. It won World War II. Good. The 45 did not. Okay, the Thompson maybe helped. The 45 is a beautiful gun. And Kimber, by the way, I don't own a Kimber because they cost more than I want to pay. But they just came out with a new, some new modernized 1911. It looks beautiful. It looks great.
It looks so nice.
Yeah, honey, if you're watching, I haven't bought it yet. We have other stuff we got to pay for. But anyway, so 40. Don't be like, I went online and the gun broker forum says you get a 45. Like, no, Jared, you already said it, and it's what can you conceal? Yeah. If you are a very tall, skinny man, right? Like you're super skinny.
Yeah,
you're probably not going to properly conceal a double stack 45. You're just not. Get a gun that fits in your hand, right? That you can control and that you can conceal on your person, right?
Okay, and to caveat for anybody who's listening, double stack being the magazine holds the rounds in a stagger, so you get more capacity.
Yeah, instead of
in a
so it's a little bit
45.
wider.
So the Springfield that's sitting over my shoulder here, the Springfield there, that's a 45. You're only talking 5-6 rounds in a magazine. That, in my opinion, is not sufficient for a carry weapon. I want to have more rounds than that. So, you know, my Glock there, my Glock is a Glock 19. I can carry 33 if I wanted it, but I can carry a whole lot more rounds. There's 15 rounds stock. Carry Glock.
Yeah, and I tell people too, and again, this goes to your point about train, right? There is like a 45, you might say, oh, more stopping power. Like, okay, well, I guarantee you, if you know how to aim with a 9, you're going to stop somebody. So if you're relying solely on stopping power, like, okay, then I guess you just want to carry a 12 gauge round with slugs, because that's your stopping power, just walking around with a shotgun all day. But the reality is you need to train on it. You need to be proficient with it, because you know, stopping power is only going to get you so far. And I think
it only counts if you can hit it.
It only counts if you can hit it, right? And we have the phrase "aim small, miss small," right? So you want to train to aim to a small area. That way, when you miss, you only miss a little bit, right? The other thing I would add is, in your home, you need to think about who else is in your home. If you're a single man in your man cave, everything goes, right? For the most part, it's only your ears that you're worried about. But you need to think about, if you're defending your home or you're defending yourself, you know, in a public situation. That's why handguns are so preferred. The 9mm is not incredibly loud. It's less likely to cause permanent hearing damage. Whereas if you think about this, if you fire off an AR, like a 5.56 inside a building without hearing protection, it's going to suck. You could potentially have some degree of permanent hearing loss, right? And same with a shotgun too. If you pop off a 12 gauge in your living room, that reverberation off the walls in there, you have a good chance of imparting some degree of hearing loss on yourself, or end up like me with tinnitus because I shot a belt-fed weapon without my ear pro in all the way. 1911 for life. Yeah. Okay. Well, Taylor and I go back. We served in Ashgabat, Turkmenistan together, and Taylor still doesn't lift, and he is now hoss-sized dad bod. He can conceal 1911s all over his body, right?
Well, and you know, going to not just the hearing side of you know, why to carry a 9mm, over penetration. In my home, like, I've got kids on the other side of that wall. I don't want to have to worry about them, so I'm not going to go out with, you know, a AR with green tips. Like,
right, exactly.
That's a bad idea.
Right.
I'm going to use my hollow points. I'm going to run, you know, G9 defense, you know, in my 9mm, because I don't want.
Yeah, I had read somewhere, or I'd heard some story. Someone made an excellent point. It changed the way that I thought about home defense weapons, and that was the hearing piece that I'm talking about too, but then the over penetration. But like, really, what is the danger of both over penetrating in the house, but then also, you know, hurting, you know, like your children's ears or something like that? Because now, realistically speaking, if someone breaks into your house, your priority is not saving everybody's eardrums.
No.
Okay. We can get some implants later if that's what it comes down to. So use what is available to you to stop the threat. What we're saying is, if you have a choice, optimize based on that, right? And so, for example, let's say
planning ahead. We make these preparations for a reason.
Right. So let's say that you do get trained on a handgun, and you've got a handgun that works for you, and it's a 9mm, it's a 358 ACP or whatever the case may be, and then you're like, I want to get a rifle for home defense. Okay, great. Before you go out and buy that rifle, consider, like, what cartridge are you going to use? What caliber are you going to use? If you can do it, maybe you should get something like a 300 Blackout.
Yes.
Because just by default, you can use, you know, if you use subsonics rounds.
Yeah.
If nobody has time to put on hearing protection before Danny DeVito starts blasting, right? You're in a much better place.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And then later down the road too, like, if you can save up and you can get a suppressor, even better. Like your
Yes.
your ideal home defense kit is like, something along the lines of an AR pistol in 300 blackout with a suppressor. Like, the wife and kids are
Absolutely.
upstairs sleeping,
Yeah, and they
and
stay asleep.
Billy Bob comes in the house, and you see it on the cam, and you're like,
Sweet.
here we go. And then they all they hear upstairs is. By the way, that's a force reset trigger. Obviously,
That's right.
nobody is running full auto because that would be illegal, and we follow the laws. But
No, I absolutely agree. A 300 blackout, 8-inch barrel, suppressed, just a fantastic with 220 grain bullets all day long.
So yeah, I mean, we're getting way out there into the what's the ideal scenario, but the takeaway is get something that's manageable, something that's practical, and then learn how to use it. Because then if you're in these situations, like don't be the person that somebody, you feel you need to use your rifle, and like you said, you've got green tip loaded and you're just plugging rounds through the house. Like you can use 5.56 green tip in your house if you know how to use it. Know your target and what's beyond it.
Right.
So
yep. Well, and that, for me, like when I moved into this house, I walked the house with that in mind. Like, okay, if somebody were to come in here, I need to egress this way because I've got kids there. Okay, if somebody came in here, I need to think. And so I walked the house, and then I went around and I positioned night lights around that so I can see shadows, so I know where they are, so I know how to move. It's the same kind of thing. It's this, we just are prepared for, we have this expectation of, and we just prepare for it.
Sure.
So mag works great.
The lever action up there is a 44 mag. Those work really good too.
Yeah, at dropping elephants. Okay. So
hey, maybe it's a very large guy who's aggressing me. Okay.
So a big guy in PCP is pretty much an elephant. So yeah,
that's right.
All right. So we've talked about why firearms are first priority, how to select firearms. So now you have the option of having plate armor. So how do you select your plate armor?
Yeah, this is one of the hardest questions, and the way I would first answer it before we get into like any kind of finite detail is get what you can afford.
Absolutely.
Right? Get affordable armor, because armor is better than no armor if you're in a situation that you need it, right? Yep. And so, I guess we could talk about the types of armor. And I do have some images pre-prepared that I sent over to you fine folks. But your main categories of armor, you've got soft armor, and I'll describe all these, but you got soft armor, you've got composite steel, and you've got ceramic, right? Perfect. Yeah, there we go. Soft armor. All right. So let's talk about soft armor. So soft armor is typically what police officers wear in their under their uniform. So you'll notice that like their uniform is like bulked up just a little bit, but it conforms to their body, right? So soft armor is usually like a quarter to somewhere around a quarter-inch thick, maybe a little bit less, a little bit more in some cases. And it's meant to stop handguns. And the current the NIJ, the National Institute for Justice, they used to have a rating system that was like 2A, 3A, and then they had like 3 and then 4. Yeah. They've changed all that. They've made it a lot simpler. So if you see on my diagram there, it says HG1 and HG2. Believe it or not, the government did something smart, and HG just means handgun, right?
Whoa.
So I know. So handgun 1, handgun 2, you pretty much don't see handgun 1. It's not, when people talk about soft armor, they almost always mean HG2. Handgun 2, aka 3A.
Yeah.
And so 3A,
44 mag and down.
44 mag and down, and I'm not a numbers guy, so I'm really bad at this, even though it's like part of my job, right? There's a threshold of 44 Magnum that basically like if it's a hot round, if it's overclocked a higher grain, you're going to get a certain FPS that'll punch through soft armor. Okay. So people use soft armor because it's usually pretty cheap. It's almost always buoyant, which is good.
Yeah, sure.
In most cases, right? Some forms of soft armor are also stab resistant. I would never call it stab proof, just as I'll never call armor, at least not intentionally call armor bullet proof. It's bullet resistant.
Yeah.
But soft armor, you can conceal it really easy. It's super flexible, so it conforms to you. It's a great choice, especially if you're starting off with something. It's also the material that helmets are made out of in part. So modern day ballistic helmets are usually some type of composite or have some layers that are used in soft armor. Right.
Hmm.
We personally don't sell soft armor at Invictus Templar, and that's because we sell plate carriers that are meant to carry hard armor. I would never tell somebody to put soft armor inserts inside of our plate carriers.
Hmm.
But it is an option. It's
Yeah,
something that's out there.
sure.
So then your next option, you could talk about steel or composite. I guess we could talk about. I guess we'll talk about steel because it's probably the most affordable. Yeah, I know I said composite first. I tricked you. Um, Yeah, there you go. So steel armor. This is where we get, and again, government did a really good thing. They've got RF1, 2, and RF3. RF1 is rifle one. So rifle one is your average rifle round. So this is a 7.62 by 39, aka the AK-47, aka 74, maybe I don't remember.
Yeah, I think it was still, yeah.
Your basic AK platforms.
Yep.
It's also your average 223, right? So your
Right.
223 Remington. Steel armor's come a long way. Once upon a time, steel armor was super thick and it was
Yeah.
super heavy, and
Yeah.
it was just literally just a giant steel plate just smashed onto your chest. Like they used to just be like strapped on to soldiers and stuff. They're a lot thinner now. They're in a lot better place. We specifically sell what's called AR 600, and we also sell AR 700. So um, after the military had like their run of this is our Vietnam era steel armor, the industry kind of rallied and started producing armor. And what they came out was with AR 500. What the 500 stands for, and then the 600 and the 700 is the Brunel hardness scale, is all it is. It's how hard that armor is. And what that means is how strong, what's the hardness? Like you think of like diamonds have like a certain hardness score, right? So
Sure.
steel has a certain hardness score that um, based on that hardness will defeat certain types of projectiles, right?
Hmm.
So in the industry, it's most common to see AR 500, 550, and 600. 600 is harder and therefore it is lighter weight because you can roll it thinner and get the same protection. Okay.
Yeah. Right.
Whereas AR 500, it's slightly softer, so you need a little bit thicker to do the same thing. Okay.
Yep.
So why is steel armor good? Well, first off, steel is pretty cheap. It's mass producible. It's kind of hard to like. You could, I don't recommend it, but you can go and you can just weld a bunch of steel together, and you'd have a good chance of defending yourself at least from a couple rounds, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So and people do that. You can go find cool videos on YouTube of some crazy backyard bubbas putting their own armor together. I don't recommend it. I don't trust myself that much, so
Right.
I'd rather have it professionally made and laser cut and everything else.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
the other good thing about steel is it's very durable. Like
Yes.
we joked at the beginning of the podcast, it's hard to break steel. If you drop it and you beat it up, or your kids are taking a wrench to it, just beating the crap out of your plate carrier because kids just do wanton chaos like they do,
Right.
your armor's going to be okay, right?
Yeah.
So for first time buyers, you can get AR 500 or AR 600 armor pretty cheap, right?
Yep.
It's very accessible.
Hmm.
Downsides to steel armor: it's got some weight.
Yeah.
Steel weighs stuff, right? And then you also have to consider if you want to have fragmentation or spall mitigation.
Small.
So
Yeah.
when a bullet hits a surface, depending on the type of surface, the bullet does different things. When the bullet hits flesh, what does it do? It goes into the flesh. When it's inside and hitting organs, it's bouncing around doing all kinds of crazy stuff. If it hits bone, right? Bone is harder. You have a chance that your bullet's going to fragment a little bit, right? And that's where, you've seen it if you ever watch any of the doctor shows. When somebody gets shot by a bullet, they're in there and they're pulling out pieces of the bullet,
Yeah.
right? Well, the same thing happens on your body armor. When steel, when immovable object meets high moving object, something has to give, and the bullet is what gives,
Right.
assuming it's not an armor penetrator round. So if it's just
Yeah.
like a copper trophy round or just a lead bullet hits that steel, it has to go somewhere. And so
Out.
un- uncoated steel runs the risk of those little pieces scattering around the surface and going somewhere. So I've got this one right here is uncoated. It's nice and thin. Look at that. It's beautifully thin. Nice, right? But when that bullet hits it, it has to go somewhere. So it's going to spread across this surface somewhere. And so you run the risk of little pieces, tagging you, and it's going to hurt, right? Now, inside of a nylon plate carrier, especially if your plate carrier is like 800 or 1000D nylon, you can actually, most of the time, you'd be able to take a few rounds before anything gets through the nylon, because nylon's pretty strong, especially 1000D nylon. So if you get tagged, two times in the chest, your armor does its job, and then your plate carrier kind of helps you out there. What we also tell people is, if budget is holding you back and all you can afford is a bare steel plate, if you're getting shot, pick your poison. Get shot, or get shot with body armor and you get some shrapnel and now you got to go get some pieces pulled out of you, because that's worst case too. You get hit in like the neck. That's like worst case. Nobody's ever worried about, oh no, hit the side. I got shrapnel in my arm. Like everybody's always like, my neck. It's like, okay, well, you have all this other where it could go too, right? So statistically, you're in a much better place. Statistically, you're just in a much better place. And to my knowledge, and I'm happy to be corrected, but nobody's ever been able to show me otherwise, there's no modern case of anyone being shot in steel armor without a coating and then they died because of frag. It's not a thing that I'm aware of. I haven't been able to find it. The DOJ doesn't profess that either. But then if you want spall coating, which we recommend, because be more safe if you can be.
Yeah.
But it costs more money. I've got another graphic there for spall coating if you want to pull it up so we can actually show people what it looks like. Yeah, there we go. So the base coat is the top image, and you see all my little fragments going everywhere, right? But the bottom one, what that is, so it's got this layer, and the layers are made of different things. Like some companies use like a Kevlar mitigation layer, but whatever it is, it's almost like there's like a truck bed liner sprayed on there, and so it's like a rubber coating. And I'll show you this one. So here's the uncoated armor, so you can see that size. And then for comparison, you can see this boy's a little bit thicker.
Yeah.
So this guy's got a buildup coat on there. And so what the buildup coat does on there that you see on that screen is that red bubble is showing that when it hits and when that fragmentation goes all over the place, it's bubbling up under the surface. So it's capturing it, right?
Makes a pimple.
It makes a pimple. Exactly. Perfect. Yeah. So that's essentially what it does, right? And so that's why frag mitigation coating is great. We offer both. I will say that our highest selling item, both on our online sales and at trade shows, gun shows, is uncoated armor, because people are like, I want something. The odds of me ever having to use it is low, so I don't want to make a higher investment. I want to just be prepared.
Yeah.
And I'll take the risk of taking a little bit of frag if worse comes to worse. And so that's what most people opt for.
Sweet.
So I guess real quick. So then we've got composite. So composite armor, there's different materials, but generally it's a type of polyethylene. And what it is it's essentially plastic. So people get freaked out when you tell them that. But composite armor works a little bit differently. And sometimes I equate it to being like a catcher's mitt. So whereas the steel, the bullet hits and bullet does this thing, the catcher's mitt kind of works where the polyethylene actually molds around it and grabs it, right? And the force, it absorbs the kinetic force and it dissipates it throughout all the strands there. So in that image, it's deliberately made to look like it's like a million strings, because that's essentially what it is. It's lots and lots of strings, highly dense in there. Good things about polyethylene and composite armor, they're almost always buoyant, or at least neutrally buoyant. So if you're in some weird situation where you're swimming with your armor for some strange reason, or evacing, that would suck. You don't have the issues of steel armor that wants to dive, right? Whereas the polyethylene is going to help, keep you up there, at least not make it worse. The other cool thing about them, nowadays they are multi-hit rated. So so I should have said that about the steel. For example, steel, modern day AR 600 and AR 700, which is absurd, by the way. 700 is just crazy. they're multi-hit rated, and to the point where AR-600, you could dump a 30-round magazine of like 223 Remington in it, and the
Right.
steel's just going to be like,
Eh.
okay, and
Yeah.
right. So that's that's always cool. The composite armor. This is where we talk about your trade-off of weight versus protection. So
Yes.
we sell we call it our Aegis series, and the Aegis is an ultralight plate. They're about 3.5 pounds a piece, so it puts them at roughly 3.1 pounds. So it puts them at about half the weight of a steel plate.
Yeah.
So both of your Aegis plates weigh as much as one of your steel plates.
Right.
So if you're like, my back hurts really bad and I'm old, it's like, hey, yeah, got it. Don't wear steel plates. Get this bad boy, right? Because this is something you can wear this all day. At 6 pounds total weight for a kid, it's crazy. And this will capture, generally speaking, you see I've got up there, it says like handgun 2, RF1, RF2.
Mm-hmm.
Handgun 2, because a lot of ballistic helmets are made out of polyethylene. And so they're handgun rated up to 44 Magnum.
Right.
And then when they get thicker and woven differently, then you move into rifle protection. So that rifle protection 1, rifle protection 2. What rifle protection 2 essentially means is all of your rifle rounds, like the 223 Remington, the AK rounds, 7.62 by 39, but then it adds in at the RF2 level. It's the the S109 something, I don't know what it's the green tip small core penetrator, right?
M193 and M is the standard, and then 855.
Yeah,
M855 is green tip.
Yeah, and so if you're a nerd and you want to look at the actual specific ballistic, I do have that chart, by the way, if you want to pull up the ballistic chart. I think I called it ballistic chart because I was smart enough to label it. I think. Yeah, ballistic ratings. Yeah, that one.
Yep, that one.
Yeah, there you go. So if you look at NIJ RF1, so our Aegis plate caps out at RF1, which is the 7.62 by 39. When we hop down into the RF2, that's where we're talking about that steel core penetrator, right?
Yeah.
So we're not talking a full armor penetrator round. We'll talk about that in a minute. What we're talking about is a small steel, think of it as like not like a pin, but
it's a needle.
It's like a small needle inside of the bullet, right? And so what happens is when that bullet hits, that needle continues through, right? And that RF2 level protects against that.
Right.
The way polyethylene plates get around the RF1 in order to become RF2, they either have to get really, really thick, and it gets like, once you get like past like a 1-inch thickness, it's just too much.
Yeah.
Which I've got our Aegis SRT plate here, and so this is pretty thin, honestly. If you
dude, that's really thin.
So the Aegis SRT, this is a poly plate that also has ceramic on the strike face. So this is a hybrid plate that blends between. It doesn't get you to a full. What we used to call level 4, which is RF3 now. So it doesn't defend against armor penetrators, but it will stop those small core penetrators. The only other thing you can do to get that is some of the AR-600s and then AR-700. AR-700s will also stop small core penetrators, and they'll be multi-hit. But yeah, these hybrid plates, again, these are all those 3.1 pounds, so they're very light. Which I guess leads naturally into the discussion about like what is ceramic, right? So we talk about poly being all these strands, and then if you add ceramic to it, what does that mean? Yeah, that's a perfect one. So ceramic, once upon a time, they used what they called a monolithic ceramic face. And so monolithic meaning one, right? And so there's one giant ceramic tile. So think about going into your bathroom, you got like tile in your bathroom. There's one big tile. So boom, like, so yeah, so this was one big piece of ceramic. Great. The ceramic just got shot. The ceramic just cracked. I don't want to get shot again, right?
No.
So modern ceramic, if you're looking into ceramic armor or hybrid armor that uses ceramic, which is what this is showing, it uses what we call mosaic tiles. So it looks like a beautiful backsplash, right? So when you go to buy this, gentlemen, tell your wife, so really this is just beautiful backsplash, and that you need it as an accessory for the house. She doesn't need to know. She doesn't need to know that you can't see it because it's under nylon, but it's backsplash, right? It's an accessory. So what this does, at least on the SRT plate, for example, again, it maintains the back part of this is polyethylene, and then the very front of it is that ceramic tile. And it's thin ceramic tile on these for sure, but it's meant to stop those small core penetrators. And they're all, and also by being mosaic like this, it's multi-hit because somebody would have to strike the exact same tile more than once to get through it. If they hit the next tile over, well, that tile's defeating that round. If they hit the next tile over, it's going to defeat rounds, right? So that's how you kind of get around that. Now, when we talk about ceramic armor, though, so what we previously called level 4, or what is now called RF3, all that means at RF3 is all the other stuff we talked about, it defeats, plus a 30-06 with M2 armor penetrator.
Yeah.
And people are like, "Wow, what is 30-06
AP?
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, that's
that means
black tip.
Big hunting rifle with round meant to go through steel. It's meant to just punch right through steel, right? It goes through light armor. Okay.
Yep.
So your ceramic plates, this is our Sanctum ceramic plate. Now, for reference, there's that Aegis. Look at the size difference. So this bad boy, it gets a little bit bigger. This is silicone carbide, so it's very lightweight ceramic. This is about 5.1 pounds, so it's still lighter than steel, but it will stop armor penetrator threats. Now, how many Sanctum plates do we sell? Not many.
Not many.
But because the average person, because we're talking about preparedness, right? The average person is not preparing to thwart armor penetrator threats. It's not... No. They're not worried about that. And the odds of Billy Joe down the street pulling out Grandpappy's 30-06 and loading it with a black tip is pretty low. And if you're in a street fight with Billy Joe and he's using a bolt action in the street, well, we've already talked about your other firearm uses that are probably your better choice. So shoot first, shoot faster, right? Ceramic plates are great. I think they're great. It's a long-term investment. It's an upgrade, right? It's an upgrade. So most people, like I said, start with steel because it does most of what you need, especially if you just start off with AR 600, you can usually get like a set for like $150, like 150, right? And that's without a coating on it. But again, we already talked about like why the coating is not super important, especially if you're like, I just need something to be prepared, right? And then from there, upgrade. It's just like a gun. Like you buy a firearm, you get a stock firearm, it does what it needs to do. And then over time, once you learn it and you learn how to use it effectively, like, oh yeah, I want to get a better trigger. Oh yeah, I want a better night sight on it, or I want a better scope, whatever the case is, right? You do those upgrades. So,
well, and I talk about this often. It's like whatever gear you're running, run it, go out, feel what it actually feels like, and then you'll understand. Oh, I really want to invest in something lighter because I'm rocking with this and it sucks. Yeah, I get that.
The other thing about the ceramics, and so the SRT plates kind of fall into this too, the ceramics are breakable, right? Yeah. And so if you beat them up, you risk compromising the integrity of the ceramic armor. And and so when you buy body armor, it has typically what's called a performance period. Most companies, the performance period on steel is 20 years because they can't just say forever because that's not technically true. And they're like, well, how long is somebody going to have armor for? It's like, well, if they use it all the time at the range, then they're eventually going to buff off the coating and something will rust over the years. So throw a pin, 20 years. The rest of it, poly armor, ceramic armor, all this is based on testing and military and DOJ use. And typically the performance period is around 5 or 6 years. That does not mean your armor expired and doesn't work.
Right.
What it actually means is if you have ceramic plates, for example, technically after 5 years after issue, you're supposed to get them inspected. Well, what do you do to inspect it? You basically get them x-rayed. You go get them x-rayed to see if anything's broken. If it's not broken,
you'll see the fracture.
Snap, you're good.
Done.
If it's broken, you see fractures in the x-ray. Oh, my plates are broken. That's bad. Right. So that's all the performance period really means. So if your audience goes out and they start like, oh, I want to go buy some plates. Well, performance period, they expire. Like, no, it's not. They're not cookies in your cabinet. They're not going to go bad, but you have to take care of them. So,
sure. So I wonder if there's any doctors in the area or maybe chiropractors. Ooh, should talk to chiropractors because they usually have. It's like, hey, can you scan this for me?
There you go.
Nice. All right. Well, do you have any closing thoughts on this?
I guess I had something else. we talk about why it's important to be prepared, and we get pushback sometimes. We got visitors.
No, just gun falling over.
Oh, guns falling over. You have spiritual visitors. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that we hear is amongst the random internet chatter is, why do you equip people for war?
Yeah.
Aren't you a Christian company? And it's like, yeah, we are. We're first and foremost a Christian company. And 10% of our net proceeds go to charities. We support a pro-life center in Cookeville.
Yep.
We support the Firearms Policy Coalition. So those shit posting neckbeards that go to the Supreme Court and just wage all out war all the time at the district court level and above, they do the Lord's work. And then we've also started supporting the American Legion in Spencer too. So, we selected charities that are what we say is glorified, gives glory to God. And the way that we categorize giving glory to God isn't we're trying to equip people to go harm people. We said at the outset of this is somebody wants to harm you. How do you defend yourself? Well, without going down like a sermon, we believe that, okay, if you're an American, if you call yourself an American, first and foremost, that means you must subscribe to the American way of life and what it means to be an American, which in theory means you subscribe to the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence. You probably agree with a lot of the stuff in the Federalist Papers and what the founders' documents said, right? But at least those three, if you call yourself an American, you have to agree with those three. Otherwise, you're not an American. That's like if you go to a church and you say, I am insert denomination, but you say, but I don't actually believe those, well, then you're not that thing.
You're not,
right? So when we say glorifies God, what we mean is what is in line with the Creator's intent. And the intent was, in our mind, and we believe that the Bible represents this, is man is endowed by the Creator, like our Declaration says, with inalienable rights, life, liberty. Now, when it says the pursuit of happiness, what the founders really meant, if you read their papers, is happiness in the terms of seeking fulfillment. And the majority of the founders meant fulfillment in the terms of liberty, which they explained what liberty meant. That liberty and freedom was to do what you ought to do, not necessarily what you want to do. Well, what is what that you ought to do? Well, that is living a life that is pleasing to God, right? And I'm sorry, I'm doing the sermon thing, right? But this all ties into the idea of we have a right to defend ourselves, right? We have that right because we're created in God's image. And if we don't believe that, then none of your other rights matter, right? If you don't believe your rights came from God, if they came from the government, they're not rights, because they're permissions. They're permissions, they're privileges, exactly. And therefore, people can take them away. Like whenever the winds change, somebody doesn't like something, they can take it away, right? So we say people have a right to defend themselves. We don't advocate for violence. We advocate for preparedness. I hope to never discharge a firearm.
Absolutely.
I hope that I will never have to use my body armor in a confrontation, that I won't ever need it, because I hope that nobody's going to try to do me harm. But I also know that we live in a fallen world, right? We live in a world where our God has said that in order for you to have a relationship with me, I grant you free will. And a consequence of free will being made in his image is that people will use that free will to do wrong. And therefore, because there is violence out there in the world, good men must be prepared to stand against that violence. Right? So if that didn't make the point, I wholly reject, our company rejects the idea of the meek gospel where, we take it out of, we take out of context, turn the other cheek.
Turn the other cheek,
Turn the other cheek did not mean get shot or stabbed, right? No. And I had a conversation with somebody who followed our page recently, and they said, your company motto, sell your cloak and buy a sword, doesn't mean what you think it does. And I said, it does. I said, it does mean that. And here's why it means that. And this is why you have to take the whole Bible in context. In the Garden of Gethsemane, When
Yeah.
Jesus is apprehended, he tells Peter, stop,
Yes.
this must be allowed.
Yes.
He doesn't say put down your sword because you're not supposed to have a sword. He says,
Yeah.
this must be allowed because I have to be taken.
Yeah.
Because my time has come. He does not say never use violence, right? Jesus, during his ministry, never told the Pharisees, all of your laws that say that the government can execute criminals or defend itself or use violence, all those are null and void. He never said that. He came to fulfill the law of the prophets, right?
Mm-hmm.
So nowhere in the Bible does Jesus say never use violence. What he does in context every time where he shows mercy and meekness, it's within the context of a situation to show people the way. And if everybody followed that way, no man would have to use violence,
Right.
right? That's the world we
irony.
wish we lived in, but that's not what we live in, right? So we believe that when he said the time is coming where you are going to be under, duress, under threat, under persecution, let the man that does not have a sword sell his cloak and buy one. And we believe he meant that literally because, in the context of that entire section in the Gospel of Luke, he's not using metaphors. He's telling them they're going to be persecuted, they're going to be attacked. Some of you are going to die. He says, so be prepared for that. He doesn't say, make peace, repent, and be prepared to die. He says, sell your cloak and buy a sword, right? Again, with the hope that we never have to use that sword. So
yeah, absolutely. Very cool. Awesome, man. Well, it has been quite a privilege to talk to you. So for those who are watching, where can they follow you to find out more? Because I know you've got your channel that you're starting up.
We've got all the things. So if you search, well, you could go to our website, which is invictustemplar.com.
Right.
So as it says on the caption up there, invictustemplar all one word.com, and on there we've got all of our socials. And I believe I've tested it a few times. If you look, there you go, YouTube, Facebook. Yeah, if you search on any of the social medias for Invictus Templar, we're pretty much the only one that comes up, right?
Yeah.
So that's the good part about having a name that's semi-unique. Is we get found pretty easy. So yeah, give us a follow, give us a like, check us out, and shoot us any questions. If people have questions after this stream, shoot us a message, comment on the post. We'll do our best to explain, give some more info.
Heck yeah. Well, Ryan, do you want to jump in here and
everybody's like, Ryan's here. Ryan's been here the whole time.
He's been hiding in the background.
Nope. You're muted, sir.
You're muted.
Yeah, I've just been lurking in the background, clicking buttons. So yeah, thank you, Calvin, for being here and talking through what you do, and just getting some. I'm the person who doesn't know anything about this stuff, right? So part of why I'm lingering in the background is it's just not my realm. So it's kind of interesting to learn about the different various options you have and what they actually do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad. Hopefully some people learned something. Ryan, sounds like you learned something, so it wasn't all a waste.
I did. Right? That's right. At least one person did.
At least one person learned something. So there we go.
All right. Well, thanks for being here, Calvin. And if people want to watch our live streams, they're at 7:00 on Tuesdays pretty regularly.
Yep. You want to tell them about your website and everything?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I can do that. I run the homesteadconsultant.com. I help people set up homesteads and do, just basically increase efficiency output with less input. And that's kind of how I sell what I do.
It's awesome.
Perfect.
All right. Thanks everybody for being here.
Thanks, sir.
And then I am Jared Wilson. I run Resilient Living. We are a small store on Highway 111, halfway between Sparta and Spencer in Middle Tennessee. So if you ever wanted to swing by, come by and say hi. I have Cal's body armor. I've got his plate carrier. I've got his gear. So if you want to come by and see that, you can see that, or the coffee. We didn't even talk about the coffee.
We didn't even talk about coffee. That's it's like its own. We should do like an entire episode on why coffee is. Yeah, actually, Ryan, what can we get on schedule? Just talk about nothing but coffee.
Coffee.
Next Tuesday.
Yeah, there we go. So yeah, you can stop by the shop. I've got freeze-dried foods. I've got books. I've got knives. I've got the ATF coming by tomorrow. So hopefully I'll have guns here shortly. So come by, say hi. And Yeah. Make sure that you like, follow, share, subscribe, do all the things to break Facebook and YouTube's stupid algorithm that doesn't share our stuff with anybody. And we'll catch you all next week. All righty, guys. Have a
See
good
you
one.
later, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.